My name is Johan Rockström. I'm a professor in Earth System Science at the University of Potsdam and the director of the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research in Germany. Well, Planet Positive is a scientific necessity today because we are putting the stability of the whole planet at risk. And it won't be enough to just reduce environmental impact. We have to also build resilience and regenerate the capacity of the Earth system, not only to buffer extremes like droughts and floods and heat waves and disease, but also to be better at navigating a future where we avoid global warming, where we avoid losing capacity of ecosystems in both oceans and on land. So Nature Positive is about becoming stewards of the planet for a better, more sustainable and resilient future for humanity on Earth. We in the scientific community are today redefining the global commons to not only be the big systems that nobody owns, to be the large environmental systems that we all depend on. That irrespective of where you live on planet Earth, you all depend on a healthy Amazon rainforest. We all depend on healthy coral reef systems. We all depend on the ocean heat circulation functioning, because these are the global commons that gives us a stable, healthy planet, which then gives us stable, healthy economies and good well-being and economic development. So therefore, the global commons today are in a way much more than only outer space, the high seas, the ice sheets and the atmosphere. It's also basically all the natural systems on Earth that we today have learned regulates the stability and the health of the planet. Well, the fashion industry is interesting and has such a challenge and therefore also opportunity, because the value chain of the textile industry is anchored across the entire Earth system and all the global commons, because the origins is the photosynthesis. That is what gives us the textiles, the materials, that is the inputs for the textile industry. I would say that, a planet positive textile industry does all it can to circulate and reuse and be circular in its value chain, but at the same time contribute to build more carbon, to improve biodiversity, to build resilient global commons, which then will, on the long term, make the textile industry more sustainable and resilient in its own right, because its natural assets will be more stable and therefore better at delivering the inputs to the industry, but also giving the customer base a better situation, because we will avoid or at least reduce the shocks and extremes that we know today not only hit communities, but they also destabilize societies. So if the textile industry can align itself within planetary boundaries, it is a very important contribution towards a healthy planet, and therefore on the long term, a healthy textile industry. Is it possible for the fashion industry to be planet positive today? That is a really important question. I recognize that this is an enormous challenge. One should not be naive. It's a question of really not underestimating the massive transformation we're talking about. Can the textile industry succeed on that journey? I would argue that yes, we have the solutions. We have all the knowledge required to work from source all the way to the consumer along a new way of doing business. I think the textile industry has a big responsibility here, can do a lot, but cannot do it alone. It requires policies to support as well. You have to put the right price on all the environmental costs along the way to help the industry to create the right incentives so that the entire industry can really see it's worth investing in carbon sequestration, in nature-based solutions, in recycling. But what's interesting today is that the industry plays a fundamental role, because rising up and saying that we're ready to transform, we're ready to move towards a planet positive, circular business model. We want to do this right. And moreover, we want to do it right not only to save the planet for future generations, we also do it because we see that this is a survival strategy, is a more competitive path for the industry. The benefits for a company to be planet positive may not be seen in the immediate short-term balance sheet, but certainly we have increasing evidence that it will come back also in the balance sheet for the industry on the long term. So if you're thinking of your company, if it's been around for 100 years and you want it to be around in the next 100 years, you better become planet positive, because what's happening with a sector like the textile industry, we are simply undermining the very resource base that enables the industry to exist in the first place. So I think a question today is to recognize that sustainability is becoming the very entry point for success, for prosperity, for competitiveness in industry. And that's not only for the textile industry, it's across all sectors, but in particular for industries that depend very much on ecosystems' capacity to deliver the biomass, the inputs, and then the textile industry is really at the center of this. So I think there are multiple strong arguments today why going planet positive is a path, certainly not only to take more responsibility, but if you want to have competitive edge in the future, this is the way to go. The Global Change Award is really exciting because it addresses one very fundamental part, which is innovation. Innovation for transformation. And the reason why this is so important is that not only do we need to have this transition towards circular, planet positive business, we also need to do it very fast. We know that it won't be enough to certainly not enough to just reduce impacts. It won't be enough to only work with investments in nature. We also need to have new technologies, new systems to be able to clothe humanity in the future. I think the H&M Foundation plays already a fundamental role in investing in high-risk, potential high-impact ideas, solutions, innovations, because we are at this transformative moment and we're shifting from an incremental, unsustainable, linear business model to a transformative, circular, planet positive model. And it's such a big change that you need to allow yourself to put investments that can be, create a free space for creative innovation.